Hey, what's up guys? Before we get into this video, if you enjoyed at any point, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell. That would be greatly appreciated. In this video, I wanted to discuss a Twitter thread between one of my fans/subscribers and a video game industry insider, Roberto Serrano. So, once again, one of my fans asked this insider on Twitter, "Hello there, is Gotham Knights getting delayed, or is it still slated for later this year? We haven't received any new info for 8 months. Is that going to change anytime soon around E3, or do you think the game got delayed until next year?" And he responds with the Joker clapping, which I don't know what that means, and then he follows up, my subscriber follows up and says, "Does this mean it's getting delayed?" And he says, "Most probably." So I think that this is also something that we've been maybe speculating. I mean, we've all been optimistic that the game is not going to get delayed. My first red flag for this was the fact that Hogwarts Legacy was delayed. Warner Brothers was planning on releasing 2 video games this year, Hogwarts Legacy and Gotham Knights. And then Hogwarts Legacy was delayed, which is frankly not very good news for our hopes of getting Gotham Knights this year, but not necessarily a deal breaker, not a guarantee that we're not going to get the game. And since August, which at this point now my math is not great, but you know, he's pretty much spot on, my subscriber there, by saying 8 months. It's closer to 7, but so, 7 months since we got that initial announcement. For context for you, from first trailer to release with prior Warner Brothers video games, it's typically between 3 to 6 months. For Mortal Kombat 11, it was 4 months. For Arkham City, it was 5 months. For Arkham Knight, it ended up being more than that, but only due to a delay. So in that case, it ended up being quite a bit more than 6 months, but it was intended to be 6 months. So I would say 5 to 6 months is typically what Warner Brothers is comfortable with. And that's just the amount of time that it's been since we have gotten any additional follow-up information, which is still ongoing because we haven't gotten anything yet. Now, is this to say that the game is 100% delayed? No, it's not. But combining all of these factors here and just using common sense and our ability to reason, here are a few things going on. One, we're in the middle of a global pandemic, and most video games this year and in 2020 had gotten delayed. And additionally, Warner Brothers Games Montreal is working from home, and it is empirically proven through research and data is that work from home is not as efficacious as working in person. In other words, people are less productive due to the barriers and obstacles presented through a work from home environment. So putting that aside, that's just one factor. The second factor is that industry insiders like Roberto Serrano are saying that the game is most probably quote unquote delayed. So there's that. And additionally, Hogwarts Legacy was already delayed. So Warner Brothers is not necessarily averse to delaying a game if it needs it or if the game won't be ready. And fourth, working against the game and the slated 2021 release is the fact that we haven't gotten anything, this year or towards the end of last year or anything. Traditionally, with a game marketing campaign, it's going to rev up more and more as we get closer to release. So, like, let's say dropping the trailer and, a couple of interview articles that they did back in August of 2020, that puts them at like a 2. And then after that, then they, a couple months later, will release another gameplay trailer. And then they're at like a 4 or 5. And then they drop information about the villain or the plot, and that they're at like a 6. And then they start releasing promo stuff and have like celebrity interviews or whatever they want to do to ramp up the marketing campaign. My point being is that it's never just you drop it and nothingness for going on a year now at this point. I mean, traditionally you would hope to see that campaign rev up and elevate and get more information and more interviews, and you have more sneak peeks and more gameplay bits and more Court of Owls stuff or whatever. And the reality of it is we've gotten pretty much nothing. They had launched this sort of fan campaign thing where people can write in with their fan art, which is cool. Nothing against that or saying that that's not worthwhile, but it's not indicative of a marketing campaign that is revving up towards the finish line. So given all of those factors that I mentioned with Hogwarts Legacy getting delayed, the industry insider, the fact that once again, we're in a work from home environment where video games are taking longer to be made, none of these things are looking particularly good for Gotham Knights. And the final icing on the cake is that, of course, when the game was announced, it wasn't necessarily met with overwhelming praise or anything of people saying like, oh, this gameplay looks better than Arkham. I mean, I don't think anybody was saying that. And again, I don't mean to compare Arkham to Gotham Knights. I think that they're very different games. I think they can be compared. I don't understand the argument that they can't be compared. But I'm certainly not necessarily in the business of comparing them. But my point being is that when we got the trailer for Arkham City or Arkham Knight, I think everybody, their jaw was on the floor and they were just salivating to get the game. I think with Gotham Knights, it wasn't a negative response, but it was more just that people were wanting to see more. People were just like, oh, well, seems interesting. I don't know exactly what this is or how this is going to work or how good it will be, but I want to see more. And that was the perspective that I had seen from the general fan. Now, of course, myself and many of my audience in particular, of my 80,000 subscribers, they might be a little bit more committed to being hyped and amped for the game because my fan base is built around people that are huge fans of DC Comics video games and that sort of thing. But for the average person, I would say it was more people that were just, impressed and looking to see more, but not overly chomping at the bit. So with that being said as well, that's something that they factor into consideration of any ways to improve the game and improve the marketing hype around it, whether that be adding new elements with new villains that are familiar or whatever they can do to hype up the marketing of the game. So I think that really what this comes down to is the fact that the game just is not ready. I definitely think now at this point, I'm very confident. If we do get the game, it's probably going to be October, November. As much as I was hopeful with regards to my prior video on the release date potentially being leaked with a placeholder date, I am not very confident in that. And right now, my honest feeling is that if the game comes out this year, which again is not something that I would cross my fingers for or necessarily bet on, then it's going to be late this year. And otherwise, it's going to be delayed into 2022. So, this really sucks because we've been waiting for this game for such a long time. We already felt like August of 2020 to get the release. It felt like it took forever because it did, obviously. I mean, 7 years is a long time with some cancellations along the way there that they couldn't have foreseen or planned for, but it still has just felt like a very long process. And of course, the last thing they want is a delay. I mean, they want to get the game out the door. It's a very strenuous and difficult process to make a video game, and I'm sure that what they want to do is get it in our hands so fans can finally experience the years and years of work and blood, sweat, and tears they've poured into the game. With that being said, they should not release the game before it's ready, and if work from home and other barriers have created a situation wherein they could not hit their target release date, they should delay it. I mean, that's just the reality of it, and to say otherwise would be misguided. It would be misguided to say that they should rush the game out the door and just throw it out there and fix it from there on out, because that's what Marvel's Avengers did, and look how that worked out. They need to make a splash with this game off the start, and the story campaign needs to be solid, and I think that I have full confidence that they're going to do that, but it is going to be a little bit of time, and again, I would look for November of 2021, if not into 2022 for this game, and just realigning everyone's expectations there. There is some rumblings and rumors in the industry that I wanted to share with you all that the game is getting delayed. It's certainly, I certainly hope not. And, by no means is Roberto Serrano, the industry insider's tweet here, indicative 100% that the game is delayed or anything like that. I mean, he's more probably just saying that he feels as though the game is probably going to get delayed based upon all of these factors that we're all seeing with our eyes. I mean, just everything compounding together, like I've mentioned, is a little fishy and frankly is not great news. So I wanted to provide an update on that, realign everyone's expectations here. I think where I'm at in my head is if the game comes out this year, I'll be pleasantly surprised. I mean, that's how my brain has been rewired. I know that everybody was really thinking, summer or bust, or, okay, at the very latest, we'll do late 2021. I mean, I think at the very earliest we get this game late 2021. I think at the very earliest we get it in November. And at the very latest, summer of 2022. That's where we're at, if I'm being totally honest. This is just my gut check. And here's the thing, too, that's about this, is that I used to be the person that was 16 years old. I mean, you got to remember, I started doing this when I was 15. When I was 16 or 17, I was the same mindset of like, oh, it's going to come out in a few months. Like, they've got this huge surprise planned for State of Play, and then at E3, they're going to drop this, and then 2 months later, they're going to drop it. I've just realized that that's not how the industry works. And if you think it's going to happen, and you're hopeful it's going to happen, it probably isn't. Like, unless you've heard someone that's well connected in the industry that said, hey, this is going to happen, it probably isn't. Because everything gets leaked these days, And the fact that nobody has come out and said, like, hey, this game's coming out in the summer, that means the game's not coming out in the summer, like 100%. The fact that no one has come out and leaked that the game is coming out in the summer means it's not. So, and the fact that nobody's even said that the game is going to be released in November shows that WB Montreal doesn't know. That's the reality of it. The game probably has not been delayed internally. They're playing it by ear, and they're seeing if they can get the game done by November. Right now, they're in a crunch period. They have 8 months to get it done by the end of the year. And 8 months is not a lot of time for a video game. These things take years and years and years and years to finish. And as any video game designer will tell you, you're never really done. I mean, you get it to a point where you're comfortable enough to put it out into the world, but a talented designer and developer is still going to look at that product and find a million different things to improve. So the reality of it is you're never done making a video game. You're only done with it to the point in which you're comfortable sending it out. And the question is, are they, by November, will they be at that point where they are comfortable putting it out the door, where it is good enough that they're comfortable with and that Warner Brothers Games Corporate is comfortable with? And that remains to be seen. It does. The other thing about Warner Brothers that you will keep in mind, and I'm starting to ramble, so I'm going to end shortly, is that they do have very high quality assurance and quality control. You will not often see Warner Brothers publish shitty games that are like some big flops that you've thought of recently in recent years. No Man's Sky or Mass Effect Andromeda or something like that. These sort of disastrous, terrible flops. Warner Brothers will not really release games like that. I mean, the biggest sort of scandal in recent memory, Shadow War Mordor definitely had some microtransaction issues that were heavily panned. And then I would say with, Batman Arkham Knight, obviously the PC debacle was a big thing. But that wasn't because the game was bad. It was just the port was bad onto PC. But I say all that to say that even like a game for Warner Brothers that is on the lower end of performance would be something like, again, a Shadow of War or something like that. Right, so they're not going to publish a game unless it is at least a B game, at least like a B minus, probably even B or B plus is where they're comfortable. So I think that if they're feeling like Gotham Knights is polished enough to get out the door, they will get it out the door this year. But I don't know that it's going to be there. I really don't. I don't know. I'm gonna end the commentary here because it's getting depressing the more and more to think about it. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. So I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts in the comments below. Once again, I used to be the person that was so optimistic. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna get it by the end of this year. Don't worry, guys. Like they're gonna pull out a secret at E3. I mean, I think they'll be at E3. But they might delay the game a month before E3 and then be like, oh, look, so we delayed the game, but we have this sick new gameplay demo for you. And it's like, okay. But then again, wouldn't put it past them to get it out by November and drop a sick E3 and 5 months later release the game. I mean, hey, I'm down for that too. So let me know your thoughts on this video in the comment section below. Very curious to get your thoughts, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.